Hello everybody, my name is Ratnos and welcome to This Week in Mythic Plus. This week's affixes are Tyrannical, Storming, Sanguine, and of course Tormented. It's not one of the best weeks on the calendar, but it's not that bad either. I'm recording this actually, I foolishly have left it too late and it's during this maintenance time, so no in-game footage today, but we'll look at some websites instead. So let's do that. First thing before we talk about the calendar actually, if you want any routes this week, Raider.io, place to go grab them. Link in the description below. You can grab my routes there every week. Okay, so looking at the calendar we've got here, we are moving into week 6, Tyrannical, Sanguine, Storming. The next 2 weeks after this week, I would say, are even better than this. We've got Fortified, Raging, Explosive, followed by Tyrannical, Bursting, Volcanic. So those are back-to-back pretty great weeks for a lot of groups. Of course, you know, these affixes aren't free or anything except for Volcanic, depending on what group you're in, but those ones will likely be better than this week, where Sanguine, you know, it is an affix that still causes problems for a lot of groups. You can have this week be a really easy week if you have people that are really good at managing Sanguine. 1 or 2 of them in your group even can be enough to make this week feel like a breeze. But it's really important to play the affix well, right? And to use abilities in a different way than you normally would. So, you know, normally a pack is ending, your tank's starting to kite or run towards the next pack, and what will happen is a monk would like drop a Ring of Peace, right, to keep the mobs knocked back into a nice tight AoE area. That's really bad this week, right? Instead, what you need to do is save that Ring of Peace for as the mobs start dying, plop it in the middle of them to knock everything out of the Sanguine quickly and avoid anything getting a tick of healing. So it requires a little bit of a mindset shift, particularly if you're holding the Ring of Peace ability, but if you have any knockback effect, that sort of shift needs to be done. And if you have any root effect, something like Binding Shot, this is the last week before Binding Shot will go away on taking a certain amount of damage. That's coming, well, I guess this week as well, but that's coming in 9.1.5. But for this week, Binding Shot, you know, if mobs get bindinged into Sanguine, really bad news. So try your best to avoid causing those problems and think ahead. Realistically, in my experience, a lot of groups, you kind of just need to do one Sanguine dungeon before people have it in their heads that it's an affix to play around, so do that. There's a weak aura you can get as well that'll put a big icon on your screen if you're targeting something with Sanguine that is Sanguine healing. That can make it something to, you know, let you know to use your knockback effect, but not really a necessary one. I don't use that one personally. Some people I know like it, though. Okay, a couple other points about this week. Next site I want to look at is mplus.subcreation.net. This is a pretty cool, useful tool that you can use to do a lot of different things. So, for instance, one of my favorite things about this, not the tier list part is kind of cool. It's statistically generated tier lists. You need to be careful, take the data there with a grain of salt, because sometimes there's, you know, reasons for things looking good that need to be taken carefully, and, you know, I was looking at particularly 16 to 26 keys, right? And that number will go up as this week gets run again. People are more geared, but there's a lot of cool stuff you can do with this site. One of those things is like clicking through to see what builds people are running in keys. Can be a really good way if you're on a new spec. You want to quickly get an idea of like, hey, what legendary, what builds are good for this spec. It doesn't necessarily answer the question of what's best, but it helps you figure out where you actually should be asking those questions and, you know, make sure you actually have thought about all the options that people are using in keys. But the second thing it does that's pretty cool is generates this Dungeon Ease tier list also, which can be a useful way to, especially if you compare this between the all affixes and the specific affixes, right? So if we put these side by side, whoop. So this is the all affixes one next to the, oh wait, that's the wrong thing. Okay, yeah, this one, all affixes next to this week in particular. You can see a couple things, right? Like theater in particular is doing pretty poorly on this week. Tyrannical theater, I would imagine, being the culprit there. Whereas Dawson Sanguine Depths, normally pretty rough. Last time this week came around on the calendar, they actually ended up being done fairly well. A little bit surprising result maybe for people that are familiar with Sanguine Depths being particularly tough. So definitely, you know, not something that should be taken as gospel or anything, but can be an interesting little place to, particularly if you want to run like one key this week, and you do exclamation point keys in your group. Everybody puts their key in the chat, and you want to just quickly get an idea of like, okay, which of these is actually going to be the toughest. This can be a useful little way to get like a baseline just of what success people are having in the different dungeons overall. So one of many neat little things you can use this website for. I use this for really my favorite thing to do with the site is just figure out like what trinkets people are running on specs that I don't play that much. Okay, that is just some of the many things that I can show when I don't have access to MDT, but hopefully next week there's not this long maintenance and I will be able to get you a normal this week in Mythic Plus with going through some MDTs and stuff at the dungeons. Hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching. See you in the next one. Bye.